Straight to a Fox News alert, President Trump announcing the U.S. military has carried out strikes against ISIS terrorists in northwest Nigeria.
This, of course, is in response to the killing and kidnapping of Christians throughout the region.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy joins us live now from Washington with the latest. Peter, the president just doesn't take a day off.
That's right, not even Christmas. And the defense secretary, rather the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is saying that these strikes are proof his department is always ready, and ISIS found that out on Christmas Day. Part of the president's post on Truth Social says, "Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight, there was." This follows a handful of ISIS-linked or ISIS-inspired attacks that have rattled the whole world this holiday season, including two Iowa National Guard members killed in Syria, Staff Sergeant Edgar Brian Torres Tavar and Staff Sergeant William Nathaniel Howard, and then a pair of incidents targeting Christians in Nigeria at a church on November 18th, and then the kidnapping of 315 St. Mary's students in Nigeria. All 315 have now been fully accounted for. The Bondi Beach terrorists are also believed to have ISIS links or ISIS inspiration. President Trump often talks about picking Dan Cain, Raising Cain, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs because Cain helped him come up with a roadmap to wipe ISIS off the map during his first term. So this administration is expected to keep maximum military pressure on these pockets of ISIS that pop up no matter where they are in the world. Back to you.
And, you know, Peter, the fact that this strike took place in coordination with the Nigerian government is, of course, key. But I remember a month ago, that very government denied that there was even a problem in their country. So what changed?
Yes, the coordination with the Nigerian government is key because it's not like the United States is trying to start a war with Nigeria. But United States intelligence agencies identified that this is where the ISIS planners and this is where the ISIS attackers are congregating in Nigeria, a safe haven. And so they went and they took them out. In terms of past statements by the Nigerian president, part of that is obviously political, but it is a tough decision for a president of any country in the world to get a call from the United States, somebody at the Pentagon, who says, hey, you have a bunch of terrorists congregating somewhere in your country. We're going to come and kill them unless you tell us not to.
Yeah, and Peter, so I was looking just now at the United Nations social media accounts. I see nothing about this. Ambassador Mike Waltz has spoken out about it, but nothing from the United Nations. Where were other leaders, not just here at home, the previous administration under President Biden, worldwide, saying that, you know, 18,000 burned Christian churches, 50,000 Christians persecuted in Nigeria since 2009? Where was the leadership before President Trump?
That's a great question, Griff, and it might speak to the struggle that the United Nations has had over the last couple of years at ending conflicts. And that's something that we hear President Trump and his team allude to when they talk about all of these world conflicts that Donald Trump has had a hand in ending since he came back into office. He's been back for less than a year. The United Nations didn't go anywhere. They've been around, and wars have started, wars have continued, and so that's a real problem that the UN has right now.
Yeah, let me share this really quickly, Peter. This is Ambassador Waltz. He said, "Merry Christmas to the Christians in Nigeria and around the world who know tonight that the President of the United States will fight for them." I don't think you could get a more powerful message, not just from this president in his action, but also from the leadership. How is this being received in Nigeria?
Well, and that's a big part of the reason why President Trump wants Mike Waltz as his man at the United Nations, because the two of them have such a close relationship. In terms of the world reaction, we expect to see some more from U.S. allies in Europe as the day continues, but things are just happening a little bit slowly with this news cycle because of the holiday.
All right, Peter Doocy live for us at the White House. Peter.
Alicia, let's bring in Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor. Mr. Secretary, good to talk to you again, and Merry Christmas to you. I want to get your sense of characterizing these attacks. Is this a way to remind ISIS and the world that our eyes are still on the ball here when it comes to the threat from ISIS?
Rich, great to be with you as well. Yes, I think that's definitely the case. Recall, President Trump's been very consistent about attacking ISIS, from the fact that we took them off the map in Syria back in the first Trump administration when they were controlling real estate the size of Delaware. This is another reminder to extremists everywhere, Muslim extremists, Islamists everywhere, that President Trump is going to be ever vigilant, whether it was the strikes in Syria just a few weeks ago, whether it's the work that we're going to do alongside the Australian government to push back on what happened in Bondi Beach, or now the attacks on Christians in Nigeria, where in the north, next to Niger, Muslim extremists have been attacking Christians for years, and President Trump is saying enough. And he did it not unilaterally, but with the Nigerian government as well, which is really important because that will allow not only these strikes, which sounds like they were pretty effective, but a real campaign to deter further attacks against Christians in Nigeria.
Now, you mentioned in the first administration there was a very dedicated campaign by the United States, its partners in the administration, to attack all of that land in Iraq and Syria that ISIS held. This is a much different campaign, but is it also a reminder to us that the threat from ISIS still exists?
Rich, we can never take our eye off the ball. These are radical Islamists. These are people that are connected in deep ways to others, including the Muslim Brotherhood. That evil, here we are in Christmas season. We have to remind ourselves that the Bible also talks about evil roaming the earth. This is clearly what this is, and President Trump has been determined to continue to push back against this threat. This is a threat against the United States and its interests everywhere. And certainly the risk here in the homeland is not zero either. We need to be very mindful of that. And so to watch this deterrence extended against ISIS operating against Christians in Nigeria is an important part of that effort.
I want to turn now to this hemisphere. There is so much ongoing right now near Venezuela. You've now got this story from the Wall Street Journal reporting that the U.S. Coast Guard and military are putting more manpower and weapons to forcibly board a ship called the Bella 1. It's a tanker. It's been fleeing. It's allegedly shipping oil to U.S. designated terrorist organizations. How important is it for the U.S. to set a standard to make sure that these ships that they think are carrying oil that's going to terrorist organizations do not deliver?
Rich, the Biden administration had lots of sanctions, but they were worse than meaningless. They didn't enforce them. What you're seeing President Trump do is actually go after, to uphold the law and enforce these sanctions against folks delivering crude oil and other products to terrorist organizations, and frankly bringing narcotics into the United States as well. And so I read the story about the Bella 1. There'll be more, and importantly, Rich, there will be lots of ship captains and boat owners who decide, it's just not worth playing this game anymore. And so you get not only the specific deterrence, going after a particular vessel or taking a particular ship off the water, but you get others who will simply not take any vessels in or out of Venezuela. Ultimately, that will deliver a campaign that can achieve a really good outcome for the Venezuelan people and make our Western Hemisphere more prosperous and more secure as well, Rich.
Yeah, and that outcome, starving the Maduro regime, and does that really get at the regime there? And do you think that this campaign of targeting the shipping, of targeting that funding source, is going to be enough to get Maduro out, or is it going to take more than that?
No, I think this can be enough. The Maduro regime relies on the Cubans. We shouldn't forget Cuba's economy will become more fragile as well. Perhaps we can have some hope for the Cuban people to get a shot as well. No, I think this campaign, when rigorously enforced, and the forces that President Trump has brought to the region are sufficient to do that, I think you can use that economic might and the threat of potential strikes, closing down Venezuelan airspace. Those kinds of things will give every young Army officer in the Venezuelan military, every general a chance to say, hey, I want out. And ultimately, that's how you get the Cubans, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, all the folks that are helping Maduro to say, President Trump has brought too much to bear, we're out, and Maduro is sent packing on his way to somewhere wonderful and lovely for him and his family.
All right. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Fox News contributor, thanks very much for joining us.
Merry Christmas.
And also here to talk about this is Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn. She serves on the Finance, Judiciary, and Veterans Affairs Committees. She is also running for governor of Tennessee. Senator, great to see you. Hope you had a great Christmas as well, and we thank you for coming on today. So we heard Nathan talking about those strikes. Give us your initial impressions on the strikes. Should we be seeing more of them if the Nigerians are going to cooperate with us?
Yes, Bill, you know, I think it's so important to recognize that about half the population in Nigeria is Christian. And as you've heard from the reporter and from the other components you've spoken about on this, there are these attacks that are taking place. ISIS has a global jihad, and by President Trump keeping his word, working with Nigeria, telling these terrorist groups, cut it out, or we will come after you. And the strikes that were delivered last night show the commitment that he has to protecting people from ISIS and from this global jihad.
And back in early November, we remember President Trump warned that this would come. If we can pull up this this Truth Social post, he says, quote, "If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action." He goes on to say, warning the Nigerian government better move fast. Senator, should aid to Nigeria be on the table if moving forward they don't take this threat more seriously and they don't get it under control themselves without having to rely on U.S. airstrikes?
And I think it is a sign of hopefulness that the Nigerian government actually came forward with the intel and worked with the United States on this. That is a very good thing. I think also this sends a signal of hope to Christians around the globe and to so many organizations. You know, Bill, here in Nashville, we have the Methodists, the Baptists, the Church of Christ, all with their headquarters here, and many missionaries that are working through these organizations. And for them to know that President Trump and the U.S. military is going to be there to help protect and support. And I think other nations that are fighting this, that are trying to get these terrorist groups out of their country, that want to protect their people, it is imperative that they move forward in cooperation with the United States to make certain that we end this global terrorist threat.
What are some of those other countries that you'd like to see work with the U.S. when it comes to these terror groups out there?
Yeah, and when you talk about what is happening there in Africa and in Western Africa, when you look at what has happened in the Horn of Africa, of course, you want to go after these areas where terrorists have used this as a training ground and make certain that you're sending that message that you are ridding the ability of these countries to work with these terrorist organizations. You look at what has happened in Iran and the way they have been the world's largest state sponsor of terrorist activity, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis or any of the other splinter groups and terrorist groups. This is something that unsettles countries. These are countries that are wanting to get these terrorist cells and organizations out of their country and return to peace. So the president sent a very strong message. And one thing I think is clear and evident, that leaders of other nations know when Donald Trump says he is going to do something, he means it, he takes an action, he keeps his word, and because of that, Americans around the globe and other countries are going to find themselves in a safer environment.
Yep, got to leave it there, Senator, and I guess we'll stand by to wait and see if there are any Democrats on the Hill who speak out against these strikes the way they did with the ones in the Caribbean. Great to see you.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Chad Pergram in Washington. President Trump says the Department of War has executed successful airstrikes in Nigeria. The president making a Christmas Day announcement on Truth Social. He writes that the U.S. targeted Islamic State militants in northwest Nigeria. The president adds that ISIS members were killing Christians at, quote, levels not seen for many years, even centuries. A U.S. official says Nigerian authorities requested the airstrike President Trump is focused on the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. Last month, he asked the Secretary of War to prep for possible action. The president today said the operation was decisive. He warned that the U.S. will carry out more strikes if the violence continues. The announcement comes nearly a week after the U.S. launched airstrikes on ISIS targets in Syria. I'm Chad Pergram in Washington.
A Fox News alert, President Trump announcing U.S. strikes in Nigeria over Christmas, writing on Truth Social, quote, "At my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight there was." Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen joining us now to react. Mark, thank you for joining us. Hope you had a great Christmas. The president clearly never takes a day off and, really doubling down on this premise that he will not tolerate these terrorists attacking and persecuting Christians. And I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, so I don't think it was a coincidence that this happened on Christmas, that he acted to defend Christians who were under intense persecution from Islamic radicals in Nigeria on Christmas Day. The angel on Christmas promised peace on earth to men of goodwill, not to all. And there's no peace on earth for Boko Haram right now.
Mark, you had a great Washington Post op-ed kind of talking about this, your headline, what MAGA Republicans really think of Trump's foreign policy. Turns out President Trump understands his base better than the isolationists and the alt-right. Do you see this as part of that foreign policy and how the base understands him?
100%. Look, Donald Trump is not an isolationist. He never was. And neither is the MAGA base. The MAGA base supports all the things he's doing. Think about what he's done this year. He bombed the Houthis. He bombed Iran's nuclear program. He's bombing Venezuelan gunboats and blockading Venezuelan harbors. He's bombed ISIS terrorists in Syria. Now he's bombed ISIS terrorists in Nigeria. This man is not an isolationist. There is nobody in my lifetime who has flexed American military muscle in the cause of peace better than Donald Trump. And the polls show, if you look at the Reagan Institute poll, every one of the things that President Trump is doing, the MAGA base supports this. MAGA is not an isolationist movement. And Donald Trump is not an isolationist president. He is standing, and by the way, he's doing more for Ukraine than Joe Biden ever did. He's allowing the Ukrainians to fire into Russia with U.S. missiles. He's arming them without taxpayer dollars, with the Europeans paying for it, but he's giving them more and better weapons than they ever got from the Biden administration. So he's really not an isolationist. He is flexing American military might on the world stage, and it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, Mark, you just set us up perfect to take a little bit of a turn, because I did want to get you on what's happening with Ukraine. We have some developments here. I mean, we are learning that President Zelensky may be coming soon to the White House, possibly by this weekend. We see Zelensky tweeting on Christmas that he's having great conversations with Witkoff. Here's what he says. He says, "We had a very good conversation with President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. We are truly working 24/7 to bring closer the end of this brutal Russian war against Ukraine. May today's conversation become another step towards peace." It's unclear exactly what President Putin is willing to do, but even this talk of a possible DMZ that Zelensky may warm up to, what do you make of it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think Steve Witkoff is one of the most unfairly maligned people in American public life. He's trying to help President Trump achieve his goal of ending the war in Ukraine and saving Ukraine as a sovereign and independent country. And the Ukrainians have been partners in this. They've agreed to everything, starting months ago when they said that they would agree to an immediate ceasefire. It was Putin who said he wouldn't agree to the immediate ceasefire. Everything the United States has asked for, Ukraine is doing. And the reason they now, even to include withdrawing from territory that they control, the key was they wanted to see what the U.S. security guarantees were going to be. And apparently that's moving along pretty well. I mean, again, President Trump has offered the Ukrainians an Article 5 style, NATO style security guarantee as part of any peace deal, which means that if Russia reinvades, the United States will and the NATO allies will come to Ukraine's defense. That's the kind of security guarantee you need, because Putin doesn't want to end the war. He doesn't want peace. He wants Ukraine. The only way he doesn't restart the war when Trump is gone is if there are strong security guarantees in place. And Trump is helping them craft that. And then it's going to be up to Putin to say whether he's going to agree or not. And the pressure will be on him.
The pressure is indeed, you put it so well, Mark, it's unclear whether or not Putin will come to the table and be a good faith negotiator, or whether he's going to continue to do what he has done. Mark Thiessen, thank you for taking time.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Let's bring in Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson Show. Ben, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
So the commander-in-chief ordering this strike in defense of Christians on Christmas Day. What do you make of it?
Yeah, two things. One, I think the president made it very clear a month ago, don't screw with me. I'm telling you what I'm going to do if you don't protect Christians. It's been open season on Christians, those that lead churches and communities and homes, and it's been, in essence, what many Christians have described as a genocide happening in Nigeria. If you're a Christian, you are a target for death. And the president made it clear, stop it, and if you do not, we will come after you. These are terrorists that are a threat to these people, and I think the president made it very clear he is going to stand by his word and back it up. I also kind of laugh at the fact that liberals were criticizing the president for doing this on Christmas Day. I'll remind them, George Washington also went to war and attacked on Christmas Day. So Donald Trump is just like George Washington in this sense. I don't care what the liberals say. This president protecting and defending Christians around the world is a good thing.
We know that 125,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria since 2009. In recent months, we've seen the president be very aggressive in terms of going after Iran, nukes, also in Venezuela, and now Nigeria. How is that playing with the Trump base?
Look, I think that the Trump, people that understand the MAGA mentality and what the president's doing here is, look, he doesn't want to invade countries. He does, however, believe that we must go after terrorists wherever they are. And we must go after people that are trying to harm us or Christians or others that are aligned with us. And if you look at the attack on the Iran nuclear site, he made it clear, I'm not trying to invade. I'm not trying to even go for regime change. But I am going to make sure that you don't have the ability to kill innocent people, whether it's our allies in Israel or Americans or others around the country. If you target American troops. We saw an attack last week because Americans were killed. What did he say there? You target American troops, we will come back with the fury of hell from America on you. And at some point, these terrorists and bad actors need to understand, this president, when he tells you and gives you a warning, a shot across the bow, believe him. Because every time he says it, he will do it if you don't change course. That's what keeps Americans safe. And I also think it is a real clear symbol. The president will use everything in his toolbox, including sanctions, to come after you as well. Look at what's happening in Venezuela.
Ben, I'm just struck by that number in terms of the slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. I think the vast amount of Americans here living our lives are preoccupied, not necessarily totally focused on that, but that's a staggering number of people slaughtered because they are Christian.
Yeah, it's really sad. I give a lot of credit to Fox News for bringing this to light. Senator Cruz and I, on the podcast we do together, we've been talking about this for months because there's just been such a void of the coverage, a silence of Christians that are targeted solely because they believe in Jesus. And if you think about what they're doing in Nigeria, it's systematic. They're moving like it's a war to different areas, trying to find Christians and slaughtering them. And the media has been silent on this. The international media, I would say this, where's the United Nations on this? Where are all the international organizations that always are supposed to be bringing this to light? Nothing at the UN on this. It is a disgrace. And why? Because it is Christians. They look the other way, and they must be called out. And I'm glad the president's doing it.
The Trump administration also taking its battle against censorship to the next level. The State Department with visa bans on these 5 Europeans from entering the United States for allegedly pressuring American tech companies to censor or suppress American speech online. All 5 are leaders in European efforts to regulate social media content they deem harmful. Secretary of State Marco Rubio posting on X, quote, for far too long, ideologues in Europe have led organized efforts to coerce American platforms to punish American viewpoints they oppose. The Trump administration will no longer tolerate these egregious acts of extraterritorial censorship. What's your read on that?
Well, look, a lot of this comes back to the issue of what the EU has been doing towards companies that they want to force into censorship. They're now going after them with taxes and saying, we got to have these certain taxes you have to pay. You have to be in compliance. If you're not, you're going to pay major fines. And this is how they're trying to force American companies into silencing people in Europe. It is wrong. I think the president moving on this one, the State Department and Rubio putting it this way, this is something I'm glad it's done now. I wish it even could have been done sooner than this. But this is a real clear socialist ideology that has exploded in the EU. And they're silencing people for just giving their opinions, just saying what you believe in. And thank goodness we live in a country where I don't have to ask permission to criticize my own government or criticize the EU. And if I put a tweet out there criticizing the silencing of people that disagree with the leadership there, the fact that they want to then say to X and other platforms, you need to silence Ben Ferguson. We don't like what he's saying. And if you don't, we're going to penalize you through taxes. It is the definition of silencing free speech. So the president should keep this up. He should keep exposing it. The American people need to understand what this is all about. And right now, I would say Europe has fallen to socialism and not allowing people to actually say what they believe in. I mean, you have people that are being arrested in their 70s and 80s for what they've said on Twitter that was not violent, that was not terrorist threats. It was just giving their opinion. So if you're in Europe and you see this, you guys have got to wake up because you're losing your freedoms in real time.
To that point, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett on free speech in the UK. Let's play her.
Think about what's happening with respect to free speech rights in the UK. People, contrary opinions or opinions that are not in the mainstream are not being tolerated, and they're even being criminalized. Because of the First Amendment, that can't happen here.
How alarming is that from a free speech perspective?
It's terrifying. And not only is it terrifying, but then this goes back to what they're trying to do in Europe, which is we want to crush companies, even if they're not in our nation, until you comply with our silencing of people and what they say. When you have a Supreme Court justice like Amy Coney Barrett who's saying this way, and the way that she articulated it is brilliant. It should be put everywhere in Europe right now. This is the warning. You want to lose any freedom you have, you want to be under communist or socialist rule, keep going down this road. But the president has to put a light on this because we do need our allies in Europe. We do not need them to go backwards in time. We do not need them to be locking up 70 and 80-year-olds or 16 and 18-year-olds who put something on social media. It's disgusting. But if we don't talk about it, they're going to keep doing this with the leadership they have now.
Ben Ferguson, great to see you. Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
A big update on Christmas. President Trump says U.S. forces delivered a powerful and deadly blow to ISIS in Nigeria. The strike follows repeated warnings from the president over alleged violence against Christians in the region. The attack targeted militants in Nigeria's northwest, though the White House has not released specifics on casualties or damage. Madison Scarpino is live in West Palm Beach, Florida with the details. Hey, Madison.
Good morning, Nate. Some major news we got on Christmas night. President Trump says ISIS has been viciously killing primarily Christians in Nigeria, and he says there will be many more dead terrorists if the murders continue. So the president announcing the strikes on Truth Social last night, saying in part, quote, "I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay. And tonight there was. The Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes, as only the United States is capable of doing. Under my leadership, our country will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper." And other reaction pouring in from people like Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who's saying, quote, "The president was clear last month the killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and elsewhere must end. The Department of War is always ready, so ISIS found out tonight on Christmas. More to come. Grateful for Nigerian government support and cooperation. Merry Christmas." Now, this is an issue in Africa that has caught the president's attention for a bit now. He has previously lashed out on the country's government for having done nothing to stop the killings. His administration has met with Nigerian officials to discuss this issue, even threatening to cut off aid to the country. So, Nate, we're still awaiting more details on the exact outcome of the strikes and what the precise target was. We're hoping to learn more from President Trump today, but so far he has no scheduled public events. Back to you.
Well, he's been very active on Truth Social, and he continues to stay busy on the foreign policy front. Madison, thank you very much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.